Hello, welcome to the MuseScore Café for today, and I forgot to look at the date again. It is June 12th, 2019. My name is Marc Sabatella. I'm the Director of Education for MuseScore, and I do these weekly chats, interactive chats, on whatever topic we feel like talking about. So one of the things that's come up in a couple different contexts for me the last week or two has been the idea of creating an instrumental ensemble score. I mean, like, just a score and then individual parts for the different instruments. Some of the different things that are involved with doing that, some of the issues that people run into. So I'm just going to go through a real simple example of this so you can kind of see the steps. As always, if you've got questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the chat. And yeah, Colleen, you're one of the people I had in mind in this. So let's get started here. I'm going to just go through the process, as I mentioned, of creating a score. So the very first thing that happens is I see, when you first start MuseScore, you have this empty score here, and then people are like, okay, well, I want to add instruments to it. I recommend you don't do that. This score is, well, it's sort of a weird score, to be honest. It's for piano. If I add notes, right, you can hear that it's a piano, but it's only got one staff, so that's not really a regular piano score. And so what I like to do is just start by creating a new score. So Control N or File New will let me start my new score. So that's the first thing. So I'm gonna use my favorite example here. Mary Had a Little Lamb. This is going to be Mary Had a Little Instrumental Ensemble. Here we go. And just go with that. And I'm going to pick one of these. I think I'm going to go with the wind. Actually, I'm going to go with the brass quartet. Do I want to do that? Sure, why not? Brass quartet score. And so it's going to basically set up the score for me. I'll just take all those defaults. So one of the things that happens is it sets up the score and puts instrument names on everything. You'll see this one is set up to have the names of the instruments on the first system and then no names here. In an orchestra score, we'd have abbreviated staff names, but for a small ensemble score, the default is to not bother because we kind of know what's what. You can always customize this. You can just right-click a staff properties, and enter a name here to show on subsequent systems. So that's one thing. Another thing is I know that trumpets, it says B-flat trumpet, trumpets are transposing instruments. I did a whole cafe on transposing like a year ago. By the way, I passed the 1-year anniversary a few weeks ago of these cafes and neglected to notice, but I noticed it last night. Yeah, at some point early on, I did a whole session just on transposing instruments. But one of the things, and so I'll grab the link to that and post it here in a bit. Maybe I'll just do it now while I'm thinking, because otherwise I'll never find it. Right. So give me a moment. YouTube is slow. Yeah, I will worry about that later. These are, thanks Colleen, these are transposing instruments, meaning I should be seeing different key signatures here when I'm looking at, their transposed music, but the concert pitch button here is pressed. It defaults to being on in this template. Every template can do things differently, but a lot of the templates that involve transposing instruments, I don't know about a lot, but some of them anyhow, are set to have concert pitch on by default. That means I can enter the notes the way I want to hear them, and I don't have to think about the transposition. So if I enter a C, I'm going to show you a couple of shortcuts here. Alt down moves to the next staff, C, right? These are all Cs. And that's how I want it to sound. But when I go to print this music out, trumpet players are not going to want to see a C. They're going to want to see a D and a D key signature, because that's how transposition works for trumpet. So when I'm all done with the score, I'm going to hit the concert pitch button, and now I can be seeing things the way they actually will need to be printed. When you go to generate parts, that happens automatically also. But you probably want to have that in your score when you're done entering notes. But while you're entering notes, you probably want to enter them at concert pitch, meaning the way they're going to sound. So you don't have to think about transposition. Now, if you're copying an existing printed score that's already transposed, you're not thinking about what it sounds like. You're just entering what you see, in which case then you will want concert pitch off. So if you're familiar with transposing instruments, hopefully this makes sense. If you're not, then what I will just say is, if you are entering music and you don't know how transposing instruments work, then enter the music with concert pitch off. Make sure it sounds good with concert pitch off, looks good, sounds good with concert pitch off, and then when you with concert pitch on, with it on, you will want to enter your music this way. And then when you're done, the parts will automatically be transposed for you. So that's enough about transposition. And I showed you that shortcut. I want to show you a couple other interesting things about actually entering the music. So I am going to use a version of this Mary Had a Little Lamb that I did in a previous Café. All right, before I go on, I have to like do a complete random digression. Best invention ever. Not just French presses in general, but this is a insulated French press. It's a double-walled glass thing, which should have been a thing all along, because that's the one downside of a French press. After you make the coffee, it doesn't stay hot. This is insulated. It stays hot a while. $20 from IKEA. Anyhow. So it stays hot for a while anyhow, much longer than a regular one. So that's my score, and it was written in 4 voices. Well, what I want to do is I'm going to make these be the 2 trumpet parts, make this be the trombone and tuba part. So I'm going to select just the top staff here, click, and then shift click here, Control C to copy, and I'm going to go back here. And, key signature, it was in G. All right, so let me select everything and delete it. So I'm going to click here and paste in my music. So now my music is there. I don't need the fret diagram or the chord symbol, so bye-bye. So now my music is there for the 2 trumpets, but it's both on the same staff. So the first thing I want to do now, or next thing I want to do anyhow, is what's called exploding the music. So I'm going to select that staff and then go to Tools, Explode. Boom. Now the music is spread out. So this works if you've entered your music onto the one staff completely. So like one voice is the top trumpet part, another voice is the bottom trumpet part. Or if you are consistently using chords, like if I enter, say, a 6, G, B, and then here, C, down here, and then maybe another C. So if I have the music entered as a chord like that, where they're both in the same voice, but every beat has something to do. Actually, I think even if I have one, let's see what happens when I do this. I think I know what's going to happen. It's going to spread them out, and it's either going to double that B or it's going to give the tuba nothing, but I think it's going to double it. There you go. So, if you enter all your music onto one staff using multiple voices or chords, which is sometimes easier to do when you're entering the music, then you can use explode to split it up. I'm going to go back to my Mary example and now copy the bottom staff and come here, paste it in, and explode that. Notice, by the way, the top is voice 1, the bottom part is voice 2, but when I do explode, it's smart enough to make them both be voice 1. So now I have the music copied over from here into here, and it's all spread out among my staves. Excellent. Cool. I'm going to delete the measures I don't need here. I'll Shift, Control, End to select everything to the end, and then Control Delete. All right. I'm going to save this before I go any further. Oh yes, I haven't saved it yet. So let me just save it right here. That's fine. It is saved. I'm also going to go ahead and add the line break. I had a line break after the first line of music. This is the score. It doesn't, I usually don't bother with line breaks and scores because they get to be long enough as they are that I just let the page breaks fall where they are and be happy the fewer pages it is. But this guy's going to fit on one page anyhow, and it just is going to look a little nicer with a line break. So at this point, I have the music entered for the score. It's all at concert pitch. All my notes are on the right staves and everything. I'm going to show one other little thing about entering music here. Let's say, let me just add a couple more measures just for fun. What if I had some complicated rhythm? Anyhow, that's not that complicated. But what if I knew I wanted that same rhythm but different pitches on this staff? Now I could enter the notes here and then explode it. But sometimes, maybe that's not how you want to work. Let me show you another trick. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste it down here. And actually, here, even another trick. That was copy and paste, right? Copy, paste, etc. And this one, I better go down an octave too. Let me undo that and show you another trick. So yeah, you can certainly paste it individually, but if you're going to have to do that a bunch of times, we can use Explode to do the work for us. If you select the whole range of staves, even though there's only one note and it doesn't need to use any additional staves, it will gladly copy that to as many staves as you want. So just select the staves you want to copy it down to, and then say Tools, Explode. There you go. And now I can take the trombone part down an octave, take the tuba part down a couple octaves, and I have that. Now, they're all the same pitches, and of course I don't really want the same pitches, but now check this out. I click this note, and then I'm going to come here to the little arrow next to the note input icon, and I'm going to pick Repitch mode. In Repitch mode, all you have to do is enter pitches. You don't have to select durations. You don't have to worry about ties or rests. All it will do is replace the notes that are there as quickly as you can type them or enter them on a MIDI keyboard. I'm going to use the piano keyboard here. Actually, is there a bug with this? I guess I'll find out. I have this vague recollection that maybe there is a bug, but we'll find out. Here we go. No bug. Good. So let me get out of there, and you can see what I did. I just typed E, F, F sharp, G, A, and it automatically switched from quarter note to eighth note. It automatically dealt with the tie. I didn't have to enter the F sharp twice or anything. I just entered the pitches that I wanted. Now I can come here and do the same thing. I meant to do something that I think is a little different than I did, but whatever. Yeah, that's not actually what I meant to do harmonically, but that's okay. It's not about the harmony here. So anyhow, repitch mode is useful. You will want to remember to turn it off again. Go back to standard note input mode. Otherwise, you'll be wondering later why you can't enter new notes. So anyhow, that's another thing that's useful while entering music. Let me get rid of those measures because I don't really need them. So save the score again. Get rid of that piano keyboard. P by. All right, so at this point I have my score. Now, the score, usually, like published scores, are transposed. In other words, the trumpets will be not in the key of G, but in the key of A. They'll have all the notes transposed the way they would actually need to look for trumpet. That is the way scores are normally published. That's the way professional conductors are accustomed to seeing things, so they can see what everyone else is seeing. If you are the composer, maybe you really don't care about that. Maybe you would really rather just see your score in concert pitch, so it's more obvious what's actually going on. I like being able to look at this and say, oh, B, D, F sharp, B. That's a B minor chord. Right? I like being able to just see that and not have to like transpose backwards to figure out what's actually going on harmonically while I'm looking at my score. So I will often just leave my scores in concert pitch. Be sure you're using MuseScore 3.1. There was a bug in some previous versions where if you tried to save a score in concert pitch, it would mess up the transposition in the parts. So, but if you've got MuseScore 3.1, you're good. I'm ready to generate my parts. All I got to do is, there was actually one other thing I was going to say about something having to do with the score itself, but I can't think of what it is right now, so I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to go to File, Parts. Now, there's this big complicated dialog that lets you do a lot of things to create individual parts for different staves in different instruments, and combine things, and combine multiple instruments onto one part, or even split one part up by voices, although that one doesn't work too well. But really the only thing you need most of the time is this button right here, New All. It's just going to generate a new part for all the instruments. Boom. So now I've got a part for the trumpet, both of the trumpets, the trombone, and the tuba. I hit OK, and the score doesn't look any different, but now look, I've got these 4 extra tabs here. One for B-flat trumpet, one for B-flat trumpet 2, one for trombone, one for tuba. Right? So, let me shrink this down so I can see actually what's happening. This looks, well, these are running into each other, but it actually looks like the page is extra big. No, it's not. So, I will have to decide at this point if maybe I want to change the font that's used for this, or maybe I just move the title down. In fact, I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to select my title, move it down, and I'll have to do this for each of these things. If I don't want to do that, so, oh yeah, let me just reset that, Control R. Oh, by the way, at this point I'm basically done. I'm ready to print these parts out. I'm ready to hand them out and do whatever. So, but you know, often you'll have things like this that need to be tweaked a bit to look nice. So one of the things you can do is say, well, what if I made this title be lower, but then I want it to apply to all the parts? Well, what I can do is I can go to Format, Style, and I can come here to Text Styles, find Title, at the very top, and change the offset here. So the Y offset, a larger Y offset, goes down. So I'm going to hit the up arrow, which makes the Y offset bigger, and that's going to make the title go down. I know it's weird, but that's the way it is. So I'm just going to hit this until it's about where I want it. Here we go, 10 spaces down. And now I'm going to hit the magic Apply to All Parts button. Boom. And hit OK. And now we'll see that it's that way in the other parts also. So if you're changing anything about a style setting to make your parts look better, then it's worth it to go to the Format Style dialog and hit that Apply to All Parts button. Other things, I mean, normally when you're changing style settings, these set as style buttons are what you want. Like if I wanted to change my title font to one of these other things, I don't know. Oh, let's pick this ink pen. I think I got this from a Finale notepad, maybe, I'm not sure. If I hit this as set as style, well, okay, great. Now all my titles are ink pen, but only for that part. It won't affect the other parts. I would have to go back to Format, Style, Text Styles, title. And now you'll see that it's there, ink pen. Now I can hit the apply to all parts button. So apply to all parts button requires you to go to format style, and now it's there in all the parts. What you should find with MuseScore 3.1 in particular, is when you generate parts, there is not going to be a lot of manual fixing up you need to do. Things are going to look pretty darn good right out of the box. It's actually somewhat amazing to me. Here, for example, let me go. This is a big band chart that I did a couple years ago in an older version of MuseScore, and I am just going to delete all the parts. So I'm going to go to File, Parts, and delete them all. There's no delete all button because this isn't something that you do every day, but there you go, they're all deleted now. And I am now going to generate them new. That means any manual adjustments that I had made are gone. Now this was created in an older version of MuseScore, so the style settings are going to be a little bit off. So this particular exercise isn't going to go quite as smoothly. Ooh, yeah, not even nearly as smoothly as I would have wanted. So that slur is obviously way too high. And so that one does need adjusting right off the bat. And I'm not sure what's up with that, but again, that could be a factor. Oh, it's a totally bogus slur. It's not even supposed to be there. It looks like somehow there's accidentally a slur that's like across the entire score. I'm just going to get rid of it because it doesn't belong there. Boom. All right. So I'm not sure where that slur came from, but it's gone now. But take a look at this. I mean, my tempo marking is avoiding this slur here. That's because automatic placement is doing that job for me. We turn it off. That's what it would have looked like otherwise, and it would have crashed into here and crashed into there. But automatic placement is pushing this up far enough. It's also making these slurs avoid these accidentals. It's making them avoid the ties. It's basically, and here, you know, nothing is colliding here. I might not think this is the prettiest arrangement in the world. You know, maybe I would rather just push this coda sign a little to the left. So let me do that. Control left, boom. And now everything is better. Maybe I think, oh, this dynamic marking could be a little closer. But I'm looking at this, maybe I want it closer throughout the score. So maybe throughout all the parts. So maybe I go to Format, Style. Actually, there's a Dynamics section in here, isn't there? I think I can set the position there. Or you can go to the text style. Position above, position below. So 4 is the default. Let's change it to 3. And then hit my Apply to All Parts button. And then OK. So at this point, oh, well, I guess applying it to all parts takes a minute. Either that or it's crashing, which is possible. That would be unfortunate, but it just takes a minute to apply it to all parts. Okay, so all I had to do, so I made that change. Now my dynamics are closer to the staff. And you don't have to worry about collisions because, you know, if this note had been lower, you know, autoplace does its job. It pushes the dynamic further down, opens up extra space. You know, everything's doing what it needs to do kind of automatically to avoid collisions. But you remember the default position of this coda marking kind of overlapped that rehearsal mark. So I moved the coda left. I could have moved it maybe a little less to the left and then moved the rehearsal mark a little to the right. You know, you can play with things like that. But as soon as the collision is gone, automatic placement says, oh, I don't need to push this thing up anymore, and everything's better. So anyhow, that's that, I'm looking here to see if there's anything else I need to do. This, again, this is an entire big band chart with slurs, articulations, rehearsal marks, multi-measure rests, voltas. You see all these things here. Here's a rehearsal mark that got pushed up to avoid that volta, and that's fine. If you don't want that, hey, let's just push it over to the right until it falls down. There you go. Or I could pull the voltas down. There's lots of things you can do. But check this out. I mean, really, is there even anything that needs to be prettied up in here? Yeah, you can spend as long as you want obsessing about details. Ooh, this slur is a bit more curved than it would need to be. It's doing that to avoid that accidental. I think I don't really need that, so I'm going to turn off automatic placement just for that slur, and the shortcut in 3.1 is just the equal sign. So I look at this and say, okay, maybe that's good enough. Maybe I'm happy with the slur crashing into the flat sign. I'm just going to leave that there so you can see that, and maybe the same on this guy. Maybe that's something that I think about, is slurs that are going to crash into accidental signs. Maybe we're better off just living with that rather than seeing them sort of extra curvy. This all fits onto 2 pages nicely. Realistically, I'm not sure that I would really spend any more time playing with this part. It looks fine, and even talking about it, I only spent like a minute on it. If I was just doing this without talking about, this extra slur, I don't know where this came from, but it looks like all the parts have this extra slur. So there must have been some glitch that happened. I probably did a Control A to select all and then accidentally hit S. Is what I did, is my guess, and it added a slur. I don't know. Probably, some previous time. I'm just looking at random parts here and whoops. So the scroll wheel, if your mouse is there in the title bar, will scroll through the tabs, which is kind of neat, but then you have to remember to, not have your mouse on the title bar. So yeah, this slur is quite distracting. But yeah, it's easy enough to delete. These parts all look pretty darn good to me without much playing around. But yeah, you can play around as much as you want. You could look at this and say, well, gee, this is awfully tight. I could add some line breaks to space things out more. Or I could come to Format, Style, Measure, and increase the spacing. This is the default spacing, but maybe if I increase it to 1.3 or 1.4 even, I might like things better. I'll go ahead and hit apply to all parts. Oh, I shouldn't have done that because I know that takes a minute, but whatever. I'll just talk while it's doing that, while it's thinking. So by increasing the measure spacing, that's going to make all the measures wider. It means that first part that fit on 2 pages isn't going to fit on 2 pages anymore. So this is a way I can get, just a little looser spacing by default without having to obsess about the details of like stretching individual measures or adding line breaks. I mean, I can still do that, but at least now the default is a little looser. I can then go back to that first alto part and say, well, gee, it still fits. No, it doesn't quite. Oh, look at that. Just barely. Hello. Just barely doesn't fit on 2 pages anymore. So I'm going to select all and then reduce stretch 1 notch. So it's the left curly brace. Boom. Now it all fits on 2 pages. So, I mean, that's really the extent of what you would want to do. You look at things and you look to see, can I make this fit on fewer pages? Can I make things a little looser by default? Can I avoid a collision? I mean, you don't need to avoid collisions. MuseScore is already avoiding collisions, but can I help myself out by maybe moving something to the left or to the right so that MuseScore doesn't have to avoid a collision? That you avoid the collision horizontally so that MuseScore doesn't avoid it for you vertically and add extra space to your score. So anyhow, that's the gist of generating parts. And by the way, it automatically transposed everything when you generated the parts. Even if you leave your score in concert pitch, the parts are automatically transposed, which you definitely want. So that's what's involved in creating an instrumental score. Kind of bugging me to have that ink pen thing there. I'm going to undo that. I guess I made a couple other changes. Let me just do a couple little rounds, a couple more. There we go. Yeah, one of them was the apply to all parts. All right. So that is my spiel there. I'm trying to think of, because I said there was something else that I was going to have said. I showed repitch mode. I showed the alt up and down shortcut for moving the cursor up and down. I showed exploding. Talked about transposition a little bit. I forgot to write down my notes about this. So I apologize for that. But, whatever. This is still a whole lot of useful stuff here. So I feel like it had to do with the instruments. What instruments? Yeah, if you want to change an instrument, you can go to press I or edit instruments. And now you can add more instruments here. Or if you want to change this, like instead of a trombone, maybe you want a French horn, I'm going to right-click this staff, staff properties, change instrument, horn. And since everything else had no short name, I'll clear that out. And boom, there's my horn in F now. That's that. Also, when you're creating the new score, I used a template. I went to the chamber music thing here, but if you've got some oddball assortment of instruments, you can just go with choose instruments. And now you pick your own instrument. So it could be a recorder, an oboe, a harmonica, and maybe what's some crazy instrument? Well, euphonium. Not that crazy, but a euphonium. So you can create your own. The template just had the instrument set up for you and all, but you're welcome to create whatever kinds of ensembles you want. So that's the story. I'm going to go find, when I'm done, the video, the previous Café on transposition. In fact, maybe I'll just find it now. There we go. Finally got here. Not on that page. I don't know. Does people have questions on or other comments, other things that you found useful about doing instrumental ensemble scores, or really about any topic? Because I'm here. I'm available to answer questions. Keys and transposition. Ooh, that sounds good. That's the one. Yeah. Okay. So this is the link. Let's go to my chat. There you go. There's the thing on transposition. So I think I actually pull out a saxophone or a clarinet or something, and maybe I even play it. I seem to remember I had a mouthpiece issue. I'm not really well, I did play clarinet once upon a time. One thing I can tell you about this whole process, we have gradually improved MuseScore. When I first started using MuseScore, it was at 1.0, and we had most of these facilities, and you can do ensemble scores, but there were a lot of things that weren't ideal about it, like the parts weren't linked to the score. If I then changed a note in the score and then went and viewed the part, you wouldn't see the change. You'd have to make the change in both places. So MuseScore 2.0 added that ability. Also, a lot of the things that are now style settings, so you could easily apply them to all parts, that didn't exist until MuseScore 2. So MuseScore 2 really helped a lot over MuseScore 1, and that was like 4 years ago. But it's still, MuseScore 2 did not have automatic placement. So the layout, when you generated your parts, they looked okay, but they would often need quite a lot of work to avoid collision. You'd have things just colliding with each other left and right, basically. And I'm not saying you'll never get that anymore. You won't get out and out collisions, but you'll get places like where, in order to avoid the collisions, MuseScore does things like what you saw it doing on my big band score, where there was just like a stack of things. Oh, that slur is bugging me. Like this little stack here where it avoided this collision, but it did it in maybe a not ideal way. So you might want to like move that thing to the right. So, there'll be places where you need to fiddle with things, but my gosh, automatic placement does such a good job of avoiding the need for this sort of stuff that you really won't often need to do a whole lot. Often there's like some stuff at the front of your score, because maybe you've got a tempo marking and a rehearsal marking and maybe some other text, like it says swing or whatever. And so those things might all kind of stack up on top of each other in an ugly way. So you might have to spend just a couple seconds dealing with the very first measure of your score. But yeah, it's MuseScore 3 has really, really improved things. And with 3.1 now, the fact that I can easily like just move that down and boom, it's down. I actually overlapped that thing. Normally you wouldn't want to, but what if you could actually tuck it inside? Not that that's right, this belongs there, but that's what 3.1 allows, right? You can take something that was above a volta and move it underneath, if that's going to help you out. Is there like maybe the second time only I can just tuck it in there, right? That's what 3.1 allows, that 3.0 didn't. So as far as this whole process of manually adjusting your score, that's 3.0 makes it so you have to do much, much, much less of it than ever before. 3.1 makes it easier to do the few manual adjustments you will need. So why does that slur keep reappearing? Well, it's reappearing on every part. So somehow I added it to every single part, and I can see him right here in the score. What's funny is, yeah, I must have at some point when because I was playing with this score yesterday because I was thinking of using it for a demo for something, and obviously this slur wasn't there. You've played this arrangement before, and then you didn't have a crazy slur all the way across your part. So somehow while I was playing with it, I think I must have accidentally selected everything in the entire score and then pressed A. Pressed S, and it added a slur to all the parts. That's all I can guess. So I could just go in here and delete them all individually, but I might instead want to retrace my steps a little bit and understand what happened. But that's what happened. I deleted it from one part, but I hadn't deleted it from all the parts. Now I don't want to delete all the slurs. I just want to delete these slurs. So there's no clever way I can think of to do this other than one at a time, but what the heck, it's only 17 instruments. Yeah, because look at that bass. The piano, I would never have added a slur in the piano or the bass part or the drum part, right? That's crazy talk. You don't have slurs in drum parts. So very clearly I accidentally pressed S to add a slur, is what seems to have happened. Starting with my first score, this is something that we used to have a demo score. Used to start with pictures at an exhibition, an excerpt from that, and then for a while it was my reunion demo score, and then we decided to just have a blank score, so that people could just start entering notes right away. It's very beginner friendly, but it quickly becomes a little bit counterproductive, because then you start thinking, oh, I got to enter all my notes into this, and then you realize, oh, I wish I had something else. So the suggestion here is to not do that. So yes, you can go to Edit, Preferences, and here's where it's starting with my first score. So this actually just came up on the support forum, and someone was complaining that they had a score that they couldn't find, whenever that they saw in MuseScore, but they couldn't find it on their computer and they couldn't delete it. And I'm kind of thinking this is what they're seeing. They just saw this and were wondering why they couldn't delete it. Well, it's not a real score. It's just something within MuseScore. But you can certainly tell it not to do that. You can say instead, start with new score, and that means when you start MuseScore up, it'll basically do the same as file new. It'll ask you to ask you for a title, to select your template or instruments, etc. Or you can say continue last session, which is what probably a lot of people do, and I should probably just get in the habit of doing that, because chances are when I start up again, I'm going to want to look at the same scores I was just looking at. But you can also start empty, or you could have some other favorite score of your own. Like, hey, if I really want to have my reunion score back as my demo, I can come here and say union. And now when I start MuseScore, reunion will be my demo score. So the folder I'm in here, I mentioned that I'm doing a demo. It's I mentioned this last week. It's for the International Music Education Summit. So I'll be doing a presentation on using MuseScore in a educational setting. So this is the old demo score. So yeah, that is definitely good. I'd say once you get to a point of familiarity with MuseScore where you're not, that default empty score isn't doing you any favors, you're probably better off not using it anymore. That is definitely a good suggestion. So so most likely, if I stuck around here, you'd have other comments and questions, but I think I'm done. I've again said what I want to say. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Hope this has been useful. And if you have, as always, other questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. And if you have suggestions for future Cafe topics, I'm always open to suggestions. One of the things that I know I'm always interested in talking about music, right? Aspects of the composing and arranging process. And I'm probably, that's probably where I'm going to be next week. Yeah, that's, I don't know what topic specifically, but very likely I'll want to talk about some specific topic about actually writing music again. But yeah, there's all sorts of random features in MuseScore that I could show off more and talk about. So, whatever people are interested in, just let me know. Yeah, last session. Yeah, I kind of think you're right. I'm just gonna, for my own benefit, just set it this way and expect that there's a good chance that I'm going to like this. Yeah, I think there is a good chance. Okay, so that said, I think I'm going to take my leave, and hope everyone has a good day, and I will check in with y'all next week. Thanks a lot. Bye.